I'm Cindy Bryant, and this is Well-Being, the show about body, mind, and spirit. What do you think of when you hear the word ozone? Well, my guest today says that it's not a pollutant, but actually a purifier. Can it be good for our health? Tom Harrelson is a researcher in the field of alternative therapies and will educate us today on ozone therapy, which has its own list of scientifically proven medicinal applications. He'll even be doing a demonstration. But first, some health news. Welcome back. Pollutant or purifier? My guest today is a researcher in the field of alternative therapies to set us straight on ozone. Tom Harrelson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Cindy.
Yeah. Why did you want to talk about ozone today?
Well, I've been studying natural and alternative therapies over a period of 40 years, since I was right out of high school. And of all the therapies that I've seen and used and worked with others using, and the research from around the world, I don't really see that there's a magic bullet in this realm, but I do see that ozone therapy comes pretty close to that.
Really?
From everything I've read and seen and working with people. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start out with this topic. Maybe I can come back and talk on many other topics.
You can talk on many, many topics,
yes,
and I wish we don't have time to get into your credentials, but they are very impressive. We need to talk about ozone. Set us straight. We think it's a pollutant. What is it?
Well, I don't have a chalkboard, but oxygen, or maybe I'll back up and say the basics. Most elements occur as a single atom. They're stable. They have enough electrons in their outer orbit to where they don't need any more or any less. They're stable. But oxygen is deficient 2 electrons. So it combines with another atom of oxygen to create O2. They share electrons in something called spin resonance. Now, a lightning storm or the ultraviolet rays from the sun, the energy from those split the O2 apart, and they're unstable. They'll either recombine to another O1, or they'll attach themselves to an O2 that hasn't been split apart and create O3. That's basically ozone. There are other higher molecules of oxygen that have been named ozone, but there's another technical word for those called
But it's a type of oxygen.
Yes, it's a type of oxygen, which is the basis of life. Studying from the Hebrew and the Old Testament, if you look at the word breath or air, they're synonymous with the spirit, soul. And the oxygen is a main part of the air that we breathe, that gives us the life.
Yeah, it's good. We think of oxygen as good.
Right.
But for some reason we think of ozone as not so good because of our media.
Yes, the media has really blackballed with ozone, and the weatherman or whatever, especially out in California where they have a lot of pollution. They'll say the ozone index is so-and-so. But you know what? If there wasn't ozone in the air that's created by the ultraviolet rays of the sun, then we would be dying in the industrialized cities, because the ozone actually neutralizes the carbon base, the nitrogen base, the sulfur base pollutants. It combines. That extra atom is unstable. It wants to break off and oxidize, neutralize, whatever. There's a lot of different chemical reactions going on there, and neutralize that. You know, what I say to people is, you know, here we say the ozone layer is the good guy up above us, but yet we're saying the ozone is bad down here. You know, if I have a dessert that I really, really like, and I'm eating it here in Columbus, Ohio, isn't it just as tasty if I'm eating it in China?
I would think so, yes.
That's
so it's good. All right, I like that. So why would we be interested in this as an alternative therapy?
Well, back at the turn of the century, or before the turn of the century, Nikola Tesla, who some of your viewers might be aware of, who was a genius, and he got a lot of his stuff by inspiration too. His information. He was the first one to develop an ozone generator, and at first when he built them, he found out that the heat generated was actually destroying the generator, so he actually came out with a cold tube design, which I won't go into the technical aspects of that, and he had it patented. And there are actually medical ozone generators today that still use the Tesla design. They're still going without any service whatsoever. In fact, there's a particular company that I deal with in Canada that sells these particular ozone generators.
But why would we want an ozone generator? Why would we want an ozone generator?
Okay. Ozone itself being unstable, the extra atom, as I said before, breaks off. You can bubble it into water and drink the water. The body will immediately be able to use that extra atom instead of having to bust the O2 apart, which is very stable. It's harder for the body to do to make use of the oxygen. It's got that extra atom to use right away.
So instead of waiting for a foggy day and going outside and breathing it,
Right.
we can get it.
Or a thunderstorm.
Right.
You know, when you hang your clothes out on a line, that fresh, clean smell you smell is ozone being created by the ultraviolet rays of the sun. It sterilizes the clothing. Back in the 50s and 60s, they used to have an ultraviolet ray bulb in the dryers that people had. And that ultraviolet ray bulb would, and I'm going to show a violet ray machine over here later, would create some ozone. And also the ultraviolet rays actually destroy pathogens too. So you got a kind of a double action going on
So
there.
we're destroying pathogens in the body?
Yes.
Inside the body?
Yes.
Helping to destroy pathogens.
Right, helping.
Right.
It's
What else can ozone do for the body?
Okay, it detoxes and reacts with pollutants, toxins, chemicals, wastes. And when it gets done with all of that, then it begins to oxygenate the body, which in turn energizes the body, because you've got these electrons in the outer orbit that we can use. I mean, people, your viewers probably might know about negative ions. Negative ions are basically O2 minus. In other words, it's an O2 molecule but extra electrons, where with ozone you have even more electrons available. Okay.
Yeah, I think we all know that we're not breathing enough oxygen.
Right, we aren't.
On a daily basis.
And to prove that, you can do something simple as a test that you can take with just a general thermometer and take your temperature. We're supposed to be 98.6, every one of us. Not really vary, because researchers at the turn of the century, when they first got into ozone therapy, found, and there's other oxygen therapies too involved, not other than ozone, okay? They found that when you're under temperature, you're under-oxidized, okay? And even if you're a tenth of a degree off, you're under-oxidized.
Okay. Which means we need more oxygen.
Need more oxygen.
And ozone therapy is one way we can get that.
An easy way and a faster way.
Easy and faster. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about how ozone is generated and some of the ways that Tom is going to show us. So stay with us. Welcome back to Wellbeing. I'm Cindy Bryant, visiting today with Tom Harrelson, who is a researcher in the field of alternative therapies. We're discussing ozone therapy. Ozone, we talked about, is a type of oxygen that is actually good for us, helps to detoxify the body and some other things we mentioned earlier. Now we're going to talk about how we can get it in our bodies rather than waiting for a foggy day.
Yes.
So, what have we got here, Tom?
First of all, if you want to hand that to me,
sure.
This is called a violet ray machine. Some of your
Violet
viewers
ray machine.
Might have read about it in some of Ed Casey's works. And it's a high voltage generator here using basically a Tesla coil. I'm going to turn it on by adjusting the spark gap, and you're going to see, I don't know if the viewers can see this.
Yeah, there is a violet.
Zoom in on it. Well, I've got it up a little bit too
Well, a little high there.
And actually, I was getting a spark out underneath there.
Now, is that shocking you?
Going to the mic.
Yeah,
Probably
okay,
cause
yeah,
a
be
problem
careful there.
with the mic. Okay, this is what they used to generate ozone back at the turn of the century. They would put it on their skin, and the ozone would be generated underneath the skin, would also be absorbed into the bloodstream.
So you would just run this against your skin,
yes,
and it's a little bit of a shock, because I felt it earlier.
You can turn it down, and there are actual tubes that have other gases in there that's a little more milder. Estheticians use it on the face.
Okay.
Get rid of dermatitis.
So it increases circulation, probably.
Increases circulation because of the pinpricks from the
and of course it puts the oxygen into
in the form of ozone.
Right.
Right, so the body can make release.
More oxygen means more energy, right?
Yes, more detoxification.
More good energy. Okay, what's next?
The next item here is it's a bigger air and water machine.
Yes.
Generates ozone using an ultraviolet lamp that simulates the ultraviolet rays of the sun as produces our ozone layer. And I'm bubbling it into water here through a special ceramic diffuser. After about 30 seconds, you can drink the water, and because the ozone is unstable, it's going to want to bubble back out again. So what I do is I tell people make up 8 ounces at a time and then drink it. This happens to be a smaller glass, but if you do want to go ahead and put it in the fridge.
So you would do this for 10 seconds and drink it right away?
30 seconds with this machine.
30 seconds,
and the smaller machine, if we were using that one, it'd be about 5 minutes because it's a lower output. It has about 50 times the output of this one.
Okay.
If you store the water, it's going to be purified because the ozone is going to neutralize the waste and poisons and pathogens.
Really?
But it won't be oxygenated, ozonated, actually, if you want to be technical about it. Okay?
But if you store it, I mean, it's still better than tap water.
Yes, it's better than tap water. And I can take tap water, even swampy water, and neutralize. Now, what we want
Swampy water?
Yes. What you'd want to do, like in a survival situation, you might have a 12-volt set up here, and then you could pour it through like the craft paper from a brown paper bag, and that would take out the oxidants that you've oxidized, from the ozone. It would make it a lot cleaner looking.
Now we're seeing bubbles. Once they disappear, does that mean the ozonation is gone?
Not all. They're actually, if you look very close, and I don't know if the camera can go in there, there's little tiny micro bubbles, very, very tiny micro bubbles in there that will diffuse somewhat. It's unstable. Within a half hour, about 50% of the ozone is gone out of the water.
Okay.
So I try to get people to drink it within the first 5 to 10 minutes.
So if I were to drink this right now, would I feel different right away?
Yeah, you probably get a little bit of, maybe a little bit of a high if you're not real toxic. It might make you a little sluggish if you're real toxic. Yeah, and some people do. They feel right away. There's another researcher that uses a pulse oximeter, and he finds that within 2 to 3 minutes, the partial oxygen in the blood will actually go up to close to 100%, if not 100%. So it's a very...
Is it possible to get too much?
Well, what the body does, by the way, I might mention this. Some of your viewers might have studied this. The body produces some ozone and produces in a form with water and creates hydrogen peroxide. That's what we're doing here. We're creating dilute hydrogen peroxide. Okay. And it's a free radical. That extra atom is a free radical, but free radicals are needed to fight disease. Our body produces free radicals to fight disease. It's when you get an excess. You wouldn't get that. You'd have to be drinking a huge amount of ozonated water, just one glass after the other for quite a long time. It's pretty hard to really get too much of this.
You've also developed a machine called a VAPOZONE detox system.
Yes.
And that's what this is?
Yes, this is what this is. This is a redevelopment from the turn of the century, from some work of a doctor that was in Chicago. I read about it in some underground newsletter. And what he was doing is he had a chemistry background along with being an MD. He was trying to find a way to get ozone into the body through the lungs without causing an oxidation reaction. Because normally, if I would run just straight ozone, even off this little machine here, which is like a miniature thunderstorm inside this box, I would start coughing. And people that smoke, that have a lot of toxicity, they would probably, in the cities, you're going to have that, toxicity, and especially industrialized cities. But you get the... you breathe this in, and it would make a cough if it wasn't running through the special nebulizer, And in this nebulizer, and I've adjusted this with this little bleeder valve.
I don't know if the viewers can see. There is a stream of
I've got it cranked up so you can see
coming out of there.
Vapor coming off. It's called OZOL vapor. It's a combination of ozone and an aromatic oil. In this case, I'm using tea tree oil. Tea tree
oil from Australia.
Right, from Australia, which is related to the eucalyptus oil. Some of you might be familiar with it with Vicks Vapor Rub.
So what do you do with this?
You bring it up about 1 to 2 inches away from your mouth, and you would breathe it 2 or 3 times deeply. And what happens is this vapor, because it's in an unstable terpene vapor, will go through the lung tissue. Plus, this particular nebulizer breaks the particles down so the small enough to go right into the lung tissue without causing oxidation reaction. A person would breathe this until they get a little bit high.
Really?
Or they would actually get a slight cough if they would go beyond that.
So you're going to feel a little bit lightheaded with this.
Yes, you might feel a little lightheaded.
Because it's a lot of oxygen.
Right.
Almost as if we were hyperventilating or...
Yes.
So it's that kind of feeling. So you breathe in the smoke, and it helps to detoxify the lungs?
Right, you've got the healing power of the aromatic oil, and you've got the healing power of the ozone. It's like synergistic, 1 + 1 = 3. I've worked with people with various types of catastrophic diseases, and people find that they detoxify very rapidly doing this. I get them on also charcoal, which oxygen and charcoal like mirror images of each other.
But that's not just for the lungs.
No, it can be, but it's actually, it works the opposite way. It goes in the bloodstream and then works its way back to the lungs, because it wants to do other things in the body first.
So it wants to get to the bloodstream first.
Right.
Now, are there any side effects to any of these?
Well,
the water or the violet?
Detoxification for some people can be almost unbearable, and what I do is I have people drink an activated charcoal slurry. All emergency rooms in the hospitals throughout the country have activated charcoal because if people get bit by a poisonous snake or an insect. Food poisoning. I've used it several times, saved my own life.
Me too.
Food poisoning.
I take it traveling with me.
If they OD on heavy drugs, it will adsorb, which is an electrical action because that's the way it works. out of the body, these things, okay? So what I do is when people do this and they're detoxing pretty heavily, which your skin's your third kidneys and lungs are your second kidneys, they might break out in welts. I get them to drink enough of it so that it all goes away, okay? So it's not necessarily a bad side effect. It's letting you know that your body is eliminating these poisons. You gotta keep the bowels open too.
And this ozonated water or vapor, or what did you call this?
It's a violet ray machine that puts it through the skin into the bloodstream.
Is one detoxifying agent. If you were to take herbs for detoxification, you may have side effects.
Yes, and I'm an herbalist also. And some of your more powerful herbs work on an oxygen level. They increase oxygen in the body. Or they work through sulfur. Sulfur is the next most powerful detoxifier. That's why garlic works so well. When the body's low in oxygen, it'll make use of sulfur compounds to clean up. There's good and bad sulfur compounds too now. Double side, just like oxygen is a double-edged sword.
But the idea with this is to put more oxygen in the body.
Yes.
So that the body can detoxify.
Right, and particularly in the form of ozone, because you've got that extra unstable atom that will break off very easily and be used right away, whereas the body has to normally split that stable O2 apart using energy to do that.
Okay, so this works very rapidly then.
Yes, it works more efficiently, you might say.
Okay, well, Tom, thank you for the demonstration.
You're welcome.
And when we come back, we're going to talk more about the benefits of ozone therapy. Stay with us. Well, Tom Harrelson says that it's the closest thing to a magic pill, and it's ozone therapy. And I want to thank you for the demonstration.
You're welcome.
It was interesting because
it's fun.
we talk about ozone and it's in the air, but how do we get it into the body? And we can get it through water, through vapor, and through
electrostimulation. The Japanese did a study, and they found that people who live in the mountainous areas where these higher molecules of oxygen, O2, O3, and so on and so forth, live 15 to 20 years longer. People in pine forests, seashores, waterfalls, where these higher molecules of oxygen are more generated. There's less pollution, too. These people live longer and are healthier for that, okay? Those people, maybe you have the people that are more the monks, the ascetics, they will do deep breathing exercises, so they get a lot more. So they're not just getting O2 in their lungs, they're getting the O3 and these higher molecules of oxygen. Some researchers say that the molecules in the mountains may go up as high as O60 or O300, some even say as high as that.
Amazing.
Yes,
so
it is amazing.
That's why these people in the mountains are living to be so old.
That's right. The Huns of people, which I met some back in 1979, they equate a lot of their health to the mineralized, energized, oxygenated water they drink that comes down from the mountains. But now researchers are saying they really feel like, because they're up there with less pollution and they have these higher molecules of oxygen, they don't need as much O2. They've got these higher molecules to make use of breathing.
So we're running out of time, but how is ozone therapy being used medically today?
The Germans have been doing this for quite a while. In fact, since the turn of the century. We were doing it in this country, but it couldn't be patented, and the pharmaceutical companies are very large. So it's kind of gone into disuse in this country. Although there are about 8 or 9 states now that have passed a Medical Freedom Act, and there are ozone doctors in this country. There are 7,000 throughout the world. 5,000 are in Germany. They used to have ozone institutes before World War II, but they got bombed by Allied bombers, yet the pharmaceutical firms were left standing.
So what kind of conditions is it helping now?
It helps with cancer, to reverse cancer, even AIDS. Horst Kief, who's a German ozone doctor, one of the premier doctors in the world, was using it, and he was the first to do it and document it for reversing full-blown AIDS.
Reversing full-blown AIDS?
Full-blown AIDS,
really?
Documenting it. Yes, there's a test, a premier test called PCR. It uses a polymerase chain reaction, uses a computer to test down to 1 virus particle. So now instead of saying HIV negative, positive, negative, they can say PCR positive, PCR negative. And out in San Francisco, there were a few hundred gay men who bought a German ozone machine, and they did rectal insufflation, which is an easy way to do it. They do it rectally, because your rectal tissue is permeable like the lungs. Whenever they collapse lungs in a lung operation, they'll stick the oxygen tube up the person's rectum, and then you can absorb the oxygen that way, even though your lungs are not breathing in and out, okay?
So they used ozone therapy?
Yes. Women can do it vaginally to knock out yeast infection. You can absorb it that way. You can blow it in your ear and knock out earaches. I've knocked out 2 major earaches. I don't have them
Or you
anymore.
can still drink the water, and it will work on your ear that way, too.
The main thing that the Germans do is something called major autohemotherapy. They'll draw about 100 cc's of blood, and they'll bubble the ozone. They have a special diffuser that won't contaminate the blood.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And then re-inject it back into the bloodstream in our artery. They do it intravenously some and intramuscularly, but that's not done as much. There's body bag treatments that can be done in. People skin brush themselves down, maybe put DMSO on, makes their skin more permeable, get in a body bag, and then put the ozone into there. It can be done through bathing in it. I take a shower in ozonated water, as I mentioned to you before. I have a special Venturi injector that injects the ozone in there.
What else have you heard that it's helped? You mentioned cancer and AIDS.
It works more on the acidosis type conditions, which would be more hydrogen and less oxygen.
And
people
most of us are acid.
More acid.
Right.
The people that have the autoimmune problems, the itises, bronchitis, emphysema, that sort of thing.
What about infections or?
Yes, yeah, any kind of colds or flus, infections, pathogenic cause, because they're mostly anaerobic organisms, which means without oxygen. They don't like oxygen. When the oxygen comes around, they go away. And by the way, just to let people know, we don't get disease from the pathogens. We get disease because there's too much toxicity and not enough oxygen. This was proven by Otto Warburg, a German scientist.
Yeah, it's not so much the germs or the viruses. It's
That's right. They're there to clean it up.
Live. Right.
And they're able to do it without oxygen being there. They're actually the good guys. If it wasn't for them. But unfortunately, because you don't do detoxing programs, then you end up getting the disease because they put out their own toxins too. Well,
Tom, this is really fascinating, and we're out of time. But I wanted to mention you brought some books along that you recommend to people if they're interested in learning more about oxygen therapy. This one is Oxygen Therapies. And then the other one is called Oxygen Healing Therapies. And I'll have this information here at the station if anybody's interested in that. And viewers, I wanted to let you know how to contact Tom if you're interested. His number is 237-8708. You can see on your screen his email address, tharrels@hotmail.com, and a website address. And I'm sorry we're out of time, but please give me a call here at the station if you want that full website address. That's it for today's show. If you're feeling holiday stress, you won't want to miss tomorrow's show. Ann Gilliland will be here to offer us some tips on how to have the holiday we want this year, based on the book entitled Unplug the Holiday Machine. So I hope you'll join us for Wednesday's Wellbeing. I'm Cindy Bryant. Thanks for watching. Until next time, be well.